are listening to the Metal Summit, your source for all things rock and roll.
Welcome. Sorry for the slight delay, everybody. We're getting everything squared up. Welcome to another episode of the Metal Summit, your favorite place to be every single week with all things rock, metal, and in between. All you metal cowboys, cowgirls, thank you again so much for joining us. With us, as always, we've got Psycho Steve, we've got Angel Alamo, we've got Jason Pearlswig, and we've got me, Jay. But more importantly, we have the man, the legend. We've got the metal cowboy himself, Mr. Ron Keel.
Reporting for Sioux. It's great to be on the summit. We've been climbing for years, and I finally reached the summit. Like I said earlier, it's all downhill from here.
Absolutely, but what a ride it'll be.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad to be here with you guys. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, first and foremost, the way that we kind of start a lot of these off is really just because of the way that things are living right now. Talk a little bit about all things Ron Keel right now. How's everything going with you? How's your family? Is everybody healthy?
Everybody is healthy, and thanks for asking. My wife is, obviously, a lot of fans know that she went through a bout with breast cancer a few years back. After 9 surgeries, chemotherapy, radiation, all that, she is happy and healthy, and she has written a book about her experiences. I do have a copy here. And I actually contributed to the book as well. And it's her story throughout, from the day she got diagnosed. She got diagnosed with breast cancer, came home and started writing, and ended up with an amazing book. It's called Anything But Pink, and you can find the book at reneekeel.com. What I did after she wrote her entire dialogue from diagnosis to being cancer-free, I went back and filled in the end of each chapter with the husband's perspective. And as a caregiver, and as what I was going through at the time, because when you get that diagnosis, everything changes. Obviously, that's a life changer for anybody who's gone through that or may go through that. Obviously, that day when she told me that she had cancer, all the plans for 2017 went out the window. I mean, there's no touring. We're not leaving. I'm not leaving. I'm going to be right there by her side throughout the entire process. So what that led to was, first of all, us being totally prepared for what we've gone through in 2020. The pandemic, nothing. We were in quarantine 3 years ago when she got cancer. We've got a cabinet full of surgical masks because you have to keep everything clean when somebody's going through that. Every doorknob, every remote control, every light switch has to be sanitized because their immune systems are so weakened during the chemotherapy and radiation treatments. So we got used to living like that, and I got used to living and working online, hosting my radio show weekly online and doing a platform called Patreon. It's called patreon.com/Ron Keel, where it's my personal social media haven for me and all the Keelaholics. Exclusive video, audio, unreleased songs, live interaction. We'll do Zoom chats and get online with the fans like I'm doing with you guys right now. A lot of interaction and special merch discounts and VIP treatment and shows and whatever I can give them for that monthly subscription fee, which is $6.99 a month, 23 cents a day. To basically come to my living room anytime you want and hang with me. So I got used to living and working online at that time. So when the pandemic hit, and I know that a lot of our friends and neighbors and families are going through a lot of hell this year with all this that everybody's been through. And I don't want to make light of that, but for me, it couldn't have happened at a better time because we got the Monsters of Rock cruise under our belts in February. I did Cozumel, Belize with the 10th anniversary of the Monsters of Rock cruise, which is always an amazing experience. It's my 8th time on board, and I was able to see Cozumel and Belize and play some shows on board. And fantastic experience. I went straight from there to my first ever Australian tour. I'd never been to Australia, and I didn't even think it was going to happen. After 35 years in the business, it was certainly a bucket list thing for me. But we did an amazing tour of Australia, and just as soon as we got back, the lockdown, quarantine, travel ban, all that descended upon us. I was expecting to be home for a few months anyway. I love my house. You know, this is my dream home that I've worked so hard for all my life, and I love hanging with my wife. I've got the ultimate fan cave downstairs with all my guitars and my recording gear. So this is really a sanctuary for me. I love traveling and being on the road, and I miss the guys in the band. But we do have a solid bunch of shows coming up in August. So it's been kind of business as usual, promoting the new album, South by South Dakota, which I'm extremely proud of. And we wrestled with the idea of releasing this on April 24th, which was the scheduled release date, not because we wanted to share the music with the fans. It's perfect music for a year like 2020. This is the soundtrack of 2020, as far as I'm concerned. But all the stuff for me was going on the radio or doing interviews like this one and trying to encourage people to shell out their hard-earned money. Hey, buy my shit, but I want you to buy this. When they're all out of work and they're struggling and they're going through hell, that was the toughest part of the whole deal. So what we did was we made it as economical as possible and a really, really nice package. We've got the 8-page or 8-panel fold-out, beautiful photography and artwork, and awesome. I can't see if it's upside down or not. I think that's pretty cool. But the artwork is fantastic. I can tell you a story about the album cover if you want. Plus, it comes with a autographed, fold-out poster, and both the front of the album and the poster signed by me with a sticker, and the whole deal was only $15.98. That was the best we could do, was try to make it an economical package for anybody that's going through a hard time this year and may need some music to help them get through the hard times. We got it for you at rockkeel.com.
Absolutely. I love the fact that you, with your Patreon, too. I think it's hilarious that you flipped a couple of those digits to 99 so that you weren't threatening too many people with the number of the beast.
What do you mean, digits?
When you were saying that you were doing the Patreon at $6.99?
Oh, we can adjust that for the sales tax. That's great. I hadn't thought of that. Well done. Well played, my friend. Well played.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that. Absolutely. Again, now, why don't you tell us a little bit about the album cover, and then we'll kick it down to Steve.
Well, the album cover itself, the train. Obviously, if you can see, it's on my computer screen there. Of course, it's time for a Windows update. Another time. The album cover itself is a train, like an apocalyptic Mad Max kind of. There it is. I think it's in focus now. But the train's been a part of our theme since day one. For the last 5 years, since I put this band together, we have a train that is literally a drum riser. And it blows smoke and lights up. It's part of the show. In fact, some of the gigs now, they won't book us unless you're bringing the train, right? We'll book it if you bring the train. It's like the 6th member of the band, or the 7th member of the band, depending on how many guys I've got playing guitar on any given night. But the train's been a part of our theme since day one. I've always loved trains. It's an iconic symbol of the American West, the Iron Horse. It's just been a part of our identity from day one. So I was looking for an awesome train, artwork, photograph, illustration, something for the album cover. So you stay up all night with your Google searches, apocalyptic train or whatever you're searching for. And I didn't find anything I liked. I found this image in a video game, and I thought, man, that's it. I was blown away immediately by the image and a perfect album cover for us. But I couldn't find the artist. I had to go through a long process of trying to track down the artist who had created this train for this video game. And after a lengthy search for him, I found a very reclusive guy. His name is Casor. He lives in the south of France. And he's out in the middle of nowhere in the south of France. I finally tracked him down, and I said, dude, I love this art. I want to use this for my new album cover. He goes, come on, Keel. I grew up listening to your music. I'm a huge fan. I would love to work with you. So it really worked out great. He's a Keel fan and grew up listening to my music. And now I found him, this guy out of the blue, to create this beautiful album cover. We call it the Ghost Train. And it's a very special piece of art. I love the album art like we used to have back in the day. Man, the Right to Rock album cover, the Final Frontier album cover. Those are, to me, some of the most iconic 80s metal and hard rock albums ever done. And it's tough to match that these days with the small packaging on CD. but I think we've done the best we could with some amazing photographs, all taken in South Dakota. And the new video, Red, White, and Blue. I'm sure you've all seen it numerous times. But I'm really proud of the video. It's the first single from the album. And obviously, when you're releasing a new album, you've got to, next thing you want, what's the single going to be? And I think we took a big risk with this one. First of all, it's a ballad. And you don't necessarily want a ballad to be your opening single, but the message behind the song, it was written by Johnny Van Zandt from Leonard Skinner and his brother Johnny Van Zandt from 38 Special. And it was a hit for Leonard Skinner in 2003, written right after the 9/11 attacks. And the message behind the song, I think, resonates just as strongly now and in the future as it did back then when it was written after 9/11. And it is a statement of the hard-working, hard-partying, hard-rocking American lifestyle that we love. And during the filming of the video, we had to stay isolated. This is at the height, I guess you could call it the height. I don't know if we did even reach the summit of the pandemic yet. It was when we were not having any contact with anybody. And the guys in the band all filmed their segments of the video in different iconic South Dakota locations. I'm at Mount Rushmore, and it was so surreal. The first spring day in April, beautiful day here in South Dakota at Mount Rushmore. I pull up, and there's nobody there. The parking attendant was not there. Free to park, come on in. Drive in, the parking lot is empty. And I grabbed my guitar, and we walked in, and this is a beautiful Saturday afternoon in springtime. I walked in, there's nobody there. It's absolutely deserted. And so I was able to get some amazing footage of me singing the song in front of Mount Rushmore, which we could have never accomplished without the lockdown. Normally on Saturday afternoon, the place is going to be packed with tourists, right? We did the same thing at Terrace Park in Sioux Falls. It's a beautiful park here in Sioux Falls where we live. We play an annual charity event there every year called Champions Thunder. That's happening August 16th. Next month, we're going to be doing that concert again here in South Dakota to raise money and raise food for people in need. So it's a great event that we do every year whenever we can. And we're headlining the event this year. It's a really nice terraced outdoor amphitheater where it's got levels ascending up to the top of the hill. The band shell stage is down at the bottom. And this, again, was on a Saturday. It was the following Saturday after I did my Mount Rushmore shoot. And we took the keyboard rig and set up our keyboard player, Dakota Scott Schmidt, on the middle of the stage. Nobody else on the stage with him, him by himself. And I did a lot of the camera work on the video myself, and I'm behind him, filming his hands and his movements, playing the song, looking out at this absolutely empty park, where normally on Saturday afternoon you have families and kids on the playground and people having picnics and all this absolutely isolated, deserted. We could have never gotten a video like this if it weren't for the lockdown and everybody, scared and staying home. But I think the video shows us united, even though we're not all in the same room together. We had an amazing video editor in Las Vegas, my partner, Victor Quinville, who put the whole thing together with these panels and frames where you could see us all in the frame at the same time. But we're isolated by fate and united by choice. And that's the message behind the song and the video. You can find that, of course, on youtube.com/officialronkeel.
That's super duper awesome, man, for sure. Psycho Steve, I think it's time for you, my good dude.
I'm sorry, if I'm not talking enough, you can encourage me and I'll just talk more.
Oh, absolutely. Be encouraged, man. Be encouraged.
Okay, Steve, you asked your question. I'm going to wet the whistle from a little Keel all right?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity, and also for Bill Shamus of Highball to make this happen. Because even me stalking you, he actually pushed you a little further to make it happen.
Yeah,
so,
I told you I'm not available until September. And you said, okay, cool. I'm now here. When is it, July? And I'm on the show. You went around Dad and talked to Bob, or the other way. If Bob won't let me do it, I'll go talk to Dad. So Dad said, yeah, Rob. And Bill, I won't say no to Bill. If Bill and Lori, James, Highball Music need me to do something and they think it's important, I'll do it, even if it's a show like this. And so I warm that since we were not thinking that.
Oh, Ross, we love you, dude.
Yeah.
Don't worry, we all have this in here. So.
It's your turn, Ben. It's your turn. Fire away.
So, okay, let's go back years ago with Steeler. Okay? Steeler was the first band before Keel became Keel. You had several well-known people in the band besides yourself. If I can remember correctly, you had Yngwie Malmsteen play with you, correct?
You should know the answer to that, Steve. You've done your homework, right? You're all prepared for this interview and this conversation. So you just answered your own question, right, Steve?
Yes. So the question I have for you, do you still keep in touch with Mr. Malmsteen? And did you ever offer him a donut?
No, we back then, we would eat whatever we could. We were on the streets of Hollywood, starving and struggling. And we were lucky to have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich to slice up 4 ways and split, a quarter between the guys in the band. We do not keep in touch. I do talk to his lawyer every now and then.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Sorry about that.
But it was great. It's an amazing record. That Steeler album, which was released in 1983, was one of the iconic cornerstones, one of the foundations of that 80s metal genre. And it put Yngwie and I both on the map. And bassist Rick Fox, drummer Mark Edwards went on to be signed to CBS in a band called Lion with Cal Swan on lead vocals, Doug Aldrich on guitar. And that was Doug Aldrich's first record deal with a band called Lion. So it really put all 4 of us on the map. And we're really proud of its place in metal history. Yngwie and I didn't last long together, but what we did during that 4-month span, the album sessions and about 9 gigs, I think, was a time that will live in rock history forever. I'm really proud of those accomplishments, and that it was a great way to kickstart my career. It did give me the muscle, the clout, the momentum to form my own band called Keel, and the rest is history. And the following year in '84, when I formed Keel, everything happened extremely fast. We did our first album, Late on the Law, about 3 months after I put the band together. And then within a couple of months of that, we were signed to a major label, Gold Mountain A&M Records, with Gene Simmons producing our debut, The Right to Rock, that August. So I put the band together in March. By August, we already had 2 records in the can. And The Right to Rock came out in January of 1985 and sold 90,000 records the first week, which was pretty good back then. It would be amazing. Today, it'd be a #1 record. But
Wow.
That really put us on the map. I credit that to a number of factors. Obviously, the song is one of those iconic 80s metal anthems, one of the best anthem tunes of that decade or that era. The Right to Rock is a timeless message and a very strong piece of music and lyrics, if I say so myself. The album cover was great. Once again, getting back to the album cover, man, that people would see that imagery and what that record holds. You know what that album is all about. That logo and that emblem of that initial Right to Rock album, the phrase itself, the Right to Rock, the PMRC that we were all fighting against, me and Dee Snider and John Denver and everybody else that joined the fight, and Gene Simmons fighting right alongside me during that battle. Their attempt to censor hard rock and metal music at the time led to us selling even more records. But that initial 90,000 that we sold that week, the song, the album cover, but most of all, it was Gene Simmons. And the fact that the Kiss Army bought that album because Gene produced it. They embraced us because Gene embraced us. And to this day, there's a really solid hardcore group of Ron Keel fans and Keel fans that started out as Kiss fans and embraced us because we were part of the Kiss family tree.
Gotcha. Did you ever tour with Kiss?
I did not. I begged Gene. I begged him. Come on, dude, just take us out. Just, he said he never would do that. I'm not sure why, but it's not over yet, right? I mean, I keep hounding him now. It's like they're doing their end of the road tour. I said, Gene, we can open for you, and it'll be our farewell tour. You can call it the Keel Over Tour. And He still isn't buying it, but who knows when their tour will resume, and a lot changes. We might be in the running for the opening act. I don't know. David Lee Roth what a great bill with David Lee Roth and Kiss out there. I'm sorry that got suspended, and we're looking forward to hopefully finishing that tour, which will probably go on for another 20 years. I don't know. It depends, man. If they keep shutting us down, we'll have to do this in spurts. We'll get 2 months of life and then 6 months of shutdown, then 2 months of life and 6 months of shutdown. Who knows what the future holds, man? That's why you got to enjoy every song, every opportunity, every conversation like this, and just live your life to the fullest. 6 months ago, we had no idea we'd be here today with all that's happened in 2020. And man, 2020 is only half over, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure, man.
You can always
It's
tell me
definitely.
that you could do the Kiss cruise. So that's something you could consider doing.
I'm sorry, Steve. You're breaking up. I know you're just kicking
sorry.
back on your bed with your phone, but come on, you need to step your game up. All these other good-looking guys are actually sitting up straight. We have posture. We have nice backgrounds and shit. You've got your hotel room there.
Comfort.
I would like to participate in the interview with you, Steve. Go ahead.
Wow.
Poor Steve.
It's okay. I can take it. I'm divorced. I have thick skin, Ron.
Well, you can sit up straight still.
It's all
like the rest
about-
of us.
It's all about entertaining people. Comfort is not a factor. Was Kiss comfortable in those costumes? Come on, dude. Comfort is not a factor here. I'm all dressed up, and I got pants on and everything, man.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you for putting
sure.
them on. I appreciate that.
Who knows what's going on where the camera ends? Like,
Exactly.
Yeah.
exactly, for sure. Angel, how about yourself, brother? A little bit of action with Mr. Ron Keel, and then Jason, we'll kick it over to you, brother.
Okay, I have a two-part question. How is it living in South Dakota? And would you ever do something like a residency in South Dakota where fans would come to South Dakota to see you? Because I know Psycho Steve would.
That's a
and
great
Jay
question.
and
The first part of the question, how is it living here? For a guy like me who has been a nomad all my life, there goes the cat, the Motley, the mascot, the Motley mascot. That's the cat. You can barely see the black cat behind his head there. But I've been a musical nomad all my life. I obviously went to Nashville when I was a teenager. And from Nashville, I went to Hollywood for 10 years. From there, I went to I spent 10 years in Vegas as a show producer and starring in my own show in Las Vegas. And then back to Nashville a couple times. It's always been music towns for me. Nashville, Vegas, Hollywood, New York. And finally, I moved to South Dakota 5 years ago for a business opportunity that was absolutely out of this world. It was a place called Badlands Pond, a huge entertainment complex that was being built here that would be a concert venue, a radio station, a restaurant, a deli, a music store. It was just rock and roll heaven all under one roof. And
Nice.
I was hired to be the voice and the face of that franchise, leading what they called the Badlands House Band at the time. And so I had latitude to create my dream team and create the ultimate band, all the guys that I loved and wanted to play with, and I could bring them all to South Dakota. My bass player, Gino Arce, who's been with me for 23 years now, and my guitar player, Dave Cawthorn, who was in the original Ron Keel band in Ohio in 2013, hooked up with a couple of South Dakota Rock and Roll Hall of Famers here, Jeff the Rev Kohler on drums and Dakota Scott Schmidt on guitar. Brought my buddy Steve Purcell from Nashville, Tennessee, who is an amazing guitarist and musician. We also have Jason Haven, a Sioux Falls guy, in the band now as well. But it was an opportunity to put together my dream team pretty much with a blank check. We had a bus and the pyro and the crew and the gear and the show and the production, and it was absolutely an amazing opportunity. Plus, I got to host a daily show on terrestrial radio, 94.5 KBAD. I did the midday shift, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day on the #1 rated rock station in the region. I was the #1 voice on the #1 station. And just to have all those dreams come true at once was an amazing ride, but the business didn't last. And we went a little over a year, and then it didn't work. However, I had found a home by then and fell in love with the community and the Midwest in general, Sioux Falls in particular, and all the people that gave us such a warm welcome here. Also, I have a home that, and you're looking at it right now. I mean, I've lived in motel rooms and shitholes all my life, and to finally, and we bought the house. We bought the house online. The fireplace is absolutely beautiful. I mean, this is the centerpiece of the living room, the fireplace.
Nice.
You know, it's just, look out the window, and there's my $1 million view. You probably can't see it because of but that's the wilderness, man. That's the wild, wild Midwest. And just the home itself, we bought it online without even seeing it, without even setting foot in it, because it was just absolutely. We had a realtor come through here and give a little video tour and show us around. I bought the house not even knowing, and when you spend that kind of money on a house that you haven't even set foot in, obviously it's a little scary. And we walked in for the first time once we moved here. We walked into the house for the first time, and it just felt, for the first time in my life, it felt like I was home. And I love the house itself. On top of the fact that we are the last frontier here in South Dakota. Throughout the whole pandemic, we never shut down. You might know our Governor Kristi Noem has stood her ground strong and hard, and she's not shutting down. She's not quarantining us in our houses. I mean, there's no movie theater. I mean, you can't go out to a club and see a band. You can go to outdoor shows, but it is literally the wild, wild Midwest. So I love the house. Plus, believe it or not, I know you saw the view out my window. The airport's 5 minutes away. So if I need to get to Australia or Mexico or LA or wherever, I went to Vegas for Memorial Day weekend and enjoyed that excursion, go back to Vegas and seeing some old friends. But I love the house. I love the area. I love the people. So how is it living in Sioux Falls? To me, it's a dream come true after wondering if I would ever really feel at home. So I didn't know what being at home felt like until I moved to Sioux Falls and bought this house. But you asked about a residency as well, which is a great question. And we do that every year at a place called Sturgis. It's the Sturgis Motorcycle Rally. And people from all over the country, just millions. This year, I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 million people at Sturgis this year. We have 5 shows at 2 different venues. And that is basically our residency, where the hard-working, hard-partying, all-American biker culture all converges in one place to celebrate life, love, music, and freedom. And we've got 2 shows at a place called Kickstands, big outdoor venue, really nice new venue. It's only been in business a couple of years. And 3 shows at a place called Glencoe Camp Resort, which is the only indoor venue in Sturgis. So when you play at Glencoe, you know, it's a nice enclosed 2,000 capacity indoor venue. So we've got the best of both worlds. We got 5 shows out there. That is basically our residency. You guys are all welcome. Admission is free. I said free. So
yes.
come on to Sturgis and join me there. You don't have to have a motorcycle to ride with Rod Keel.
Absolutely. I'll just get in your little side pouch.
Damn, I'm glad to be single.
Absolutely. Angel, I'm with you on that one. Jason, how about yourself there, my good dude? We haven't heard from you yet.
Hey, Ron. So I have a question. It's
He is
2-part
frozen.
What's up?
Okay.
I have a 2-part question.
Your video's frozen, but I can hear you loud and clear.
I'm frozen? All right.
Or just being very still.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
There you go.
Okay, Jason, go ahead.
my question is a 2-part question. All right. I understand that I know that you sang briefly for Black Sabbath. And my question is, how did you get that gig, and what was your experience like? How did you how was it? How did you How was it? Let us know about how your experience is or was.
Well, that experience continues on. Just last week, we released a video for Die Young, which got over 10,000 views in just a couple of days. The video exploded on YouTube and went viral. It's a track from the Emerald Sabbath tribute record, which brings together a lot of Black Sabbath family members, alumni, ex-members of Black Sabbath and Ozzy's band. I've got Vinny Appice on drums, Rudy Sarzo on bass, and DC Cawthron from the Ron Keel Band on guitar. So that experience hasn't ended yet. I got to finally live that dream and appear on the closest thing I'll ever get to being on a Black Sabbath album with this Emerald Sabbath project. And it was a dream come true to finally record those songs. I never expected to be recording Ronnie James Dio, Ian Gillan, and Ozzy tracks in the studio at this age. So it was quite a challenge, and I'm really, really proud of the results and proud of the response the video's gotten. Overall, very positive, and like I said, over 10,000 views in a week. At the time, in 1984, I was just putting Keel together. Keel was formed in March of 1984, and I was doing demos at Pasha Studios in Los Angeles, where Spencer Proffer, the owner of the studio, was producing. He had produced the Quiet Riot debut, which sold 18 million albums, and Spencer was the hot hand in the rock industry at the time. And he had heard my demos, basically, with Keel, and he was signed to produce the next Black Sabbath album. And he had a lot of pull, obviously, because he had produced that Quiet Riot mega hit, which broke down the barricade for all of us in 1983. So Spencer had some juice, man. He had some mojo going, and he got me the gig, basically, and hooked me up with Tony and Geezer. And it was a very short-lived experience because at the time they were, for me, just to rub elbows with Tony and Geezer and sit around in a room and talk about being in Black Sabbath, that's about as far as it went. I never did any gigs, and I never recorded with them, but it's a very small moment in my history that I still get every interview. That's a very common question. It's a good question and deserves to be addressed. The experience was obviously all of a sudden. I'll tell you a little story about that. I was putting Keel together, as I said, doing the demos, and all of a sudden I got the gig in Sabbath, and I had to sit the guys in Keel down. Now Mark Ferrari had just moved to L.A. and Kenny Chason and not Dwayne Miller, but Bobby Eisenberg, Bobby Marks, our drummer. These guys had invested in my dream and become a band called Keel. And we were off to a good start. We had a great show booked April 7th, 1984, which would be the debut show of Keel. And about 2 weeks before that, I had to sit them down in a band meeting in our band house in Hollywood, and I had to tell them, guys, I just got the gig in Sabbath, and obviously I can't turn this down. I mean, this is an opportunity of a lifetime, and they were all very supportive and said, dude, you got to go for it. You got to follow that dream. And they were very supportive, and we understood that first Keel show was going to be our last Keel show. That was it. We were going to do the one gig, and then I was going to go off and join Sabbath. And I told them, I said, look, the deal is you can't tell anybody, man. This is extremely confidential. Don Arden, Sabbath's manager, Sharon Osbourne's father, had laid down the law to me. You do not say a word to anyone about this. And Don was a very intimidating cat, man. Mafioso and just really, really scary dude. And he set me across from his desk, says, you tell no one about this. This goes no further than this room. And I said, well, I got to tell the guys in my band, and they were cool with that. I had that meeting with Keel. I said, you can't tell anybody. This cannot get out. All right. And they said, okay, cool, man. We shook hands and hugged. And, we're going to go and do that one show, and it's going to be a hell of a night. And we're going to have a memory that will last a lifetime. It's going to be great. All right, guys, good night. I get out. I leave the band meeting, get in my car. I had a Trans Am at the time. Get in the white Trans Am, start the engine, and I'm listening to KLOS radio. And all of a sudden, the announcer comes on the radio and says, "It's just been announced that Ron Keel is the new lead singer in Black Sabbath." I go, "No, no, you're not supposed to tell anybody." And here it is on the radio. I go, "Oh, shit. Oh, no." So I drive home. And I go home. I turn on MTV. Of course, we all watched MTV back in the day, right? 1984.
Yep.
Well, that's all we watched was MTV. So I turned on MTV, and all of a sudden, Martha Quinn's on MTV announcing Ron Keel is the new lead singer in Black Sabbath. It was a big deal. I wish I had that footage of that announcement now, but I don't know that if they thought I let the cat out of the bag or not. Tony and Geezer did come to that gig, and they were backstage with us at that very first Keel show. And Tony and Geezer, Carmen Apiece, we're all there together. Carmine's still my guitar player because I was going to go join Sabbath, and it's the last Keel gig ever. And Tony and Geezer, I believe, that night saw something that they didn't. That I was good that night. I had the show on video, and you can watch that video of that first Keel show on my Patreon page.
Nice.
You can see that Keel debut concert from April 7th, 1984. I've got the video. It's not on YouTube. It's only for my subscribers at patreon.com/Ron Keel. But you could tell I could sing. I had the pipes and I was doing those high screams, and it was. But there was nothing dark about Keel. Keel was all about the smiles and the high fives, and more Van Halen. It was more of a party show. It was Speed Demon. We're rocking hard, and we were doing some metal, but it wasn't dark. It wasn't Sabbath. They weren't seeing me playing that role. They were seeing me play Ron Keel. And I do believe that I could have, and I did in rehearsal. When I did the Sabbath rehearsals, I was all dressed in black with an upside down cross and doing, I'm very proud of what I did in rehearsal, but I don't think they went to the gig and they didn't see that guy. They didn't see the lead singer in Black Sabbath. They saw the lead singer in Keel, and it's different. It's a different game, different sport. You're not going to hit the football with a baseball bat, man. You got to play the sport that in the arena where you're at, and that was Keel. Keel was about a party, rock and roll, good times, and high fives and smiles and shit. And that's not what Black Sabbath was all about. So I think that combined with the fact that they severed their deal with Spencer Proffer, who was trying to make them into an 80s hair band. Spencer was pushing outside songs. He wanted them to have MTV hits. He wanted them to be an 80s hair band. And Sabbath was powerful enough, and Tony Iommi was clear enough in his own vision to know that that's not Sabbath, man. They're not doing it. So they fired Spencer. He never did produce a Sabbath album. I got caught in the crossfire, and it gave me an opportunity to still talk about it, to still be a little thread in their history and some of the books that have been written about Black Sabbath, Tony's book as well, and on the website, and to be a part of this new Emerald Sabbath project. I would have never been able to do that if I hadn't had some small role in Sabbath back in '84, and to do this new record. And just last week, like I said, the video for Die Young really exploded on YouTube, and I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of the vocal, proud of the video, proud of the results, and we look forward to doing more. We do some Sabbath in the show, in the Ron Keel Band, and in the tour of Australia, we throw some Sabbath in. It's part of my history, and it gives me the right to sing a few of those songs live, so I'm all about it.
Absolutely, for sure. Actually, Ron, that's a really good bridge into a question I was kind of curious about with you, so your first 4 Keel albums all came out in consecutive years. So taking the current COVID situation out of this, you've got last year, this year, and the next 2 years of 35-year consecutive anniversaries for your records.
Yeah.
How do you look back on those records compared to the music that you're putting out now? How do you feel the old stuff stands up today? And how do you feel your vision and your thought process in writing now meshes with your history?
Well, I know that I'm famous for reinventing myself through the years and being diverse, going from metal or hard rock to melodic rock to country to southern rock and all of these other branches on the Ron Keel tree, so to speak. And you are right. We're reaching milestones now. I just realized it a few weeks ago that the summer of 1980 was the first time I ever heard myself on the radio. And it really is kind of, it resonated within me. You got to celebrate those milestones, man. 40 years in the business, 40 years of hearing myself on the radio, pretty amazing. And now the 40th anniversary of Steeler, which we have this new, now we plug some more shit. We have this new Steeler compilation record coming out. These songs were recorded in 1981, 82.
Oh,
So
cool.
we're actually also celebrating the 40th anniversary of the birth of Steeler in 1980 when that band was formed. And so, yes, you're right. I'll be celebrating milestones from now on. For the next 10 years are going to be a celebration of the 40th anniversary of this concert or that album or that song or that memory or experience. I look back on every song, every album. They're all different. They all have their own character and identity. Certain songs still resonate strongly within me, and we still do those songs in the show. You'll see a set list from a Ron Keel band club show or where it's a rock type event. We tailor the show for the gig. We can talk about that, which is a good topic that I enjoy. How I tailor the song list for each individual gig. I don't do the same show every night. If it's a rock show at a club where you know there's going to be a lot of Keelaholics and Keel fans and people that dug what I did back in the day, you got to front load the set with Speed Demon, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow. We always do the hits. We always do Because the Night, Tears of Fire, The Right to Rock, Somebody's Waiting, Rock and Roll Outlaw, those 5 big singles. But then if it's a big rock show, we'll add United Nations or Speed Demon or some of those other songs I mentioned. I Said the Wrong Thing to the Right Girl, which is a huge fan favorite. It was never a single, but the fans love that tune. And it's still, I think that one has really stood the test of time. There are some really good songs on a lot of those records. Now, are all the records great? That's not for me to decide. It's for those fans who grew up listening to that stuff, who waited in line in 1985, 86 at the record store to walk up to the counter with that album in their hand and shell out their $8 or whatever. That's up to them. That's an important part of their life and their childhood. I would never want to discount what that record meant to them. What they mean to me is it's a different perspective. It's amazing memories. And as I continue to reinvent myself, I make it a point to never, I'm not losing anything. I'm just adding. You don't have to change to reinvent yourself. I still love those records. I still treasure my accomplishments. Even when I sang country music in the 90s, I had to focus on that art form in order to master it. I couldn't be an 80s metal guy and dive headfirst into country music and really pull it off. I had to distance myself from the 80s at that point in order to be successful at what I did, in order to be good at what I did, in order to make a living and entertain people and write good songs. And I had to adapt to that art form. Now, the way I write now is a combination of both. I've learned from both experiences writing hard rock and metal, which usually comes from the guitar first. You usually start with the riff, and then the singer adds lyrics on top of that riff. That's the way Back in Black was recorded. The band had written the music, and Brian Johnson's sitting out in the other room trying to put lyrics to it. A lot of times nowadays, my songs happen in the opposite manner, where I will build a song around the voice, the story, the melody, the lyric, and then I'll find the music that complements that, because I've got hundreds of riffs and chord progressions and ideas all in my song catalog or my library on the computers. I'll just listen back to something I might have just woken up 6 months or 6 years ago and played and recorded. I'll listen to it and go, man, that really fits this lyric, and I'll put those together, and the lyric and music will become married. So my songwriting style changed a lot when I sang country music. I learned how to really craft a song, how to make every line count. There's no throwaway verses. You've got to have a logical way to transition from a verse to a pre-chorus to a chorus to a bridge. You can't just throw a bunch of chords together and say, oh, that's good enough. Like we used to do back in the day. A lot of times we would settle for, yeah, that rocks, it's heavy, it's cool, it's good. And you'd slap some lyrics to it. And as long as it rhymes, and maybe sometimes it didn't even rhyme, but it was tightened our belts, abuse ourselves, get in my way, I'll put you on the shelf. And you know what that song is. But I'm not dissing Steve, but Stephen Piercy's a good friend of mine. But you know, that was the lyric. That was what we did back then. You just threw a bunch of phrases onto a page, and it didn't mean a whole lot. What do those songs mean? Now every song I write has to really mean something, which makes it more challenging. That's why my output is not as prolific as it used to be, because I'm hypercritical of every song. It's got to at least measure up to some of the good songs that I've done in the past. It doesn't have to be the best song I ever wrote. There's probably a handful of tunes, maybe half a dozen songs that I feel are really great songs that I've written in my life. And you can't always reach the summit, but you have to enjoy the climb. And you know, if you make it halfway there, it's still a really good song. It doesn't have to be another Right to Rock or another Just Like Tennessee or another My Bad or some of these songs. And that's why I love the cover album. And we can talk about the covers all you want, but I've done, I think, 28 covers throughout my career with Keel. Because the Night was a cover song. Rock and Roll Outlaw was a cover song. And people, it's a covers album. To me, they're all covers albums. Every record I've ever done, because once you write a song, you're done with it. From then on, you're covering it. You're executing. The song's written. It's already done. Whether you wrote it or you co-wrote it with Mark Ferrari or somebody else wrote it. Somebody else wrote Somebody's Waiting. Jack Pawnee, who worked with Bon Jovi and Skid Row and the Nelsons. That's a great song. And once you write it, from then on, the rest of your life, you're covering it. You know, we did the Right to Rock in 1984 when I recorded that with Gene Simmons producing. We're sitting side by side in the studio, and Gene said, "You know, you're going to have to sing this song for the rest of your life." And I go, "Yeah, all right, that's cool." And I do, and I'm really proud of that and happy with it. It's one of the best rock anthems of all time. So I feel differently about the albums and the songs, and it has been a progression and evolution. No two of those records sound alike. Even the two Gene albums, Right to Rock and Final Frontier, do not sound like this. There's not a whole lot of similarity there, which may have led to confusion among the fans because they don't really know who I am or what I do. And it's diversity. There was a time when that was acceptable. And a band, which I certainly admire, Queen, all right, is the same band that did Bohemian Rhapsody. Are they the same band that did another one, Rides the Bus? I mean, those two styles couldn't be more diametrically opposed. Bohemian Rhapsody, another one, Rides the Bus. It was cool for them, though. You know, they could do Crazy Little Thing Called Love. That's a country song, man. That's as country as it gets. Dwight Yoakam had a big hit with Crazy Little Thing Called Love. It's a country song. Queen could do anything. I always loved and admired that about artists like Queen and Kiss as well. Kiss did a little bit of everything. I don't know that they ever did country, but Hard Luck Woman, Garth Brooks covered Hard Luck Woman. It was a great version of that. So Kiss was one of those bands that was always reinventing themselves and changing with the times, trying new things. Paul would say, "Hey, I could do that. That's Paul. That's Paul Stanley. He'll look at something or hear something. Go, that's cool. I could do that," and he'll try it. And I took that influence from my favorite bands like Kiss and Queen, and I just thought, well, it's cool, man. I want to climb that mountain. I want to do that. I want to sing that. I want to play that. I grew up in an environment that was absolutely musical, where I was in the classical band at school, classically trained, playing a variety of instruments in the orchestra, won awards for playing jazz music as a teenager, in the marching band, playing the big bass drum in the marching band, playing rock and roll, playing the Motown stuff. You know, Stevie Wonder was Chicago. It was all just different items on the menu, and I just wanted to eat it all and consume it. And when I started to grow up into being a teenager, then you start thinking about girls and, you know, rock and roll, and the louder it is, the cooler it is, and you want to get wild and loud, and it's more electric, it's more sexual, it's more exciting. And so that's why I gravitated to hard rock and metal in my teens and in my early 20s. And it's been a part of me since the first great hard rock albums that I was hearing were, you know, Zeppelin and Purple and Black Sabbath. And I think those were the big three when I was a kid that were really laying it down hard and heavy. And then, of course, Kiss and Alice Cooper and all those bands in the 70s, Foghat, BTO, they were giving these huge monster power riffs. And I just love that stuff. I still love that stuff, but I'm not going to just eat spaghetti every day, My menu is very diverse, and it's been a beautiful ride and a hindrance at times because fans don't always know what they're going to get. I still get that booking shows. We're trying to book a show. Well, what's he doing? What's he doing now? Is he playing country music? Is it southern rock? Is it metal? Whatever the hell you want, man. Whatever the audience calls for. And back in the day, it was the same thing. When Keel was opening for Metallica, we would look out in the audience and 5,000 guys in leather jackets, all sweaty, greasy guys in leather jackets. We throw Speed Demon, all the heavy shit. We throw all that heavy stuff into the show. We're opening for Bon Jovi. We did all the commercial, I Said the Wrong Thing to the Right Girl, and Calm Before the Storm, and Tears of Fire, and Because the Night. If you're opening for Bon Jovi, that's what their audience that's what's gonna resonate with that audience. And I was able even to do the same thing back then with Keel that we're doing now. We'll tailor the show to the audience. As I told you earlier, we do a rock gig. It'll be all the Keel hits and the album cuts and the deep cuts from Keel and Black Sabbath and Steeler even. But if we do a bike event like Sturgis, if you go see us at these 5 shows where we're playing at the Sturgis Rally, you will hear Keel, but you'll also hear a lot of South by South Dakota. You'll hear a lot of these Southern rock classics that we're covering. And what we do in the show is we'll build a medley. We don't just do cover songs. We'll do a medley. We'll do a 12 to 15-minute tribute to Skinner or Marshall Tucker Band or 38 Special. And there's a medley on the new album. It's actually recorded live. The Creedence medley. It's the end, the last track on the record. It's recorded live, and it shows you how we'll kind of do a little tribute mashup of, you'll do a verse and a chorus of one song into the next song, and you do a little medley. That way it becomes a showpiece. And that comes from my days as a Las Vegas show producer. How do we combine 40 songs into an hour-and-a-half show by creating these medleys? And it's a little 12-minute tribute to those acts where it gives the audience the songs they know and love, but you're not playing cover songs. And then in between that, you can squeeze in songs from Fight Like a Band or the old Keel classics. There's some Black Sabbath, there's some Steeler, all mixed into that context, and it works great.
Absolutely, for sure. Before I kick it over to Psycho Steve, I got 2 comments for you real quick. One, you're hired as our PR agent, dude, because these Summit references are amazing. And second of all, being a big Queen guy myself, the fact that you're talking about Another One Bites the Dust, but you're giving it the Weird Al Yankovic title is the best fucking thing I've heard on this show.
I did, didn't I? Another One Rides the Bus. I did, didn't I? Wow.
That's amazing. Absolutely.
That's my bad. All right. Yeah, I'm busted there.
Oh, you're totally cool, brother.
Perhaps you did not hear me correctly.
Psycho, it's all
I
you,
said, bro. Another one bites the dust. Spitting all over my...
Clean out your ears.
Turn some lights on here.
So, today is if you're a rock star or a country star or a southern rock star, what kind of job would you be doing?
That's a good question. If I wasn't a musician, if I hadn't devoted my life to music, there's no way to tell, man. And I really don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about that because I believe that we're all born with the potential to see some dreams come true. Now, some people aren't cut out to be doctors or lawyers or whatever. I do believe that I was meant to play music. It was something that I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan before any of you guys were born. That was February 1964. I was 2 years old, and that was the catalyst right there that I looked at the TV, and I pointed to the TV. I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play music on TV. And that was it. I mean, that was it. From then on, I was the cliched kid rock star wannabe, jumping up and down on the bed with a hairbrush, singing into the hairbrush, playing drums on anything I could hit, just whatever I could, make a noise, holding a beat. I never had any other aspirations other than to be a writer. I used to write novels and stories and still do. I've got a nice stack of unpublished fiction. I love writing fiction. I enjoyed the autobiography that I wrote, and I enjoyed contributing to Renee's book that I showed you earlier at the top of the interview. So I think I would have liked to have been a writer and I still am. I believe that being a writer is not necessarily a job, but it's in your heart and in your soul, and a storyteller at the core of everything. I am a storyteller, as you probably can tell from the last hour, conversation. I love telling stories, and that's probably what I would have been if I had not needed to get laid and pick up a guitar, and because chicks don't. That was literally, it was the typewriter or the guitar, and the chicks wanted the guy that played the guitar, so that's why I didn't become a writer. I love writing, but of course every prepubescent American male, well, I mean, not every. I wanted chicks, all right, and that was the first time I sat behind a drum set. I was an absolute nerd. I was not good at sports. I was really good in school. I was a good student, but I was very unhealthy and not athletic. So I was not cool. I was a nerd. My parents were very strict about with the clothes that I wore, and how I couldn't have long hair, and I had to wear geek clothes, and I wasn't able to express myself visually like that. So the first time I sat behind a drum set, and I actually was able to, I just sat down, and the groove came to me, and it was already, I didn't have to learn it. Somehow it just came out, and everybody goes, wow, hey, that's cool. And all of a sudden people were smiling and paying attention to me. And all of a sudden I wasn't totally cool, but I was at least a little bit cool. And that to me was like, it triggered even further my desire. I loved music. I loved playing and singing, and then I started getting into writing songs and expressing myself. So that's the writer. That's the storyteller, the guy that'll stay up all night on the typewriter, the computer now. It used to be a typewriter when I was a kid, or a pen and paper, a notepad. I've got them I'm surrounded by songwriting tools, notepads, and little, my voice recorder on my phone is full of song ideas, and I'm always creating. So that's what I would have been in some shape or form. I would have been a creator of something, whether it's written words or probably would be my best talent or my best asset. But I was just bitten by music. It was infectious, and it still is to this day. I want it just as badly now as I wanted it in 1964 watching the Beatles.
Sweet.
Awesome, man. Right on. Angel, how about yourself there, my man? Why don't you chime in?
Okay, wow. You answered some of my other questions. How was it working with Gene Simmons as a music producer?
It was amazing. And even at the time, I didn't realize how amazing it was. Gene signed on to produce Keel's debut major label album, The Right to Rock, in 1984, because he's a very ambitious cat. I mean, he wanted to star in movies, and he wanted to produce albums, and he wanted to have a magazine, and he's one of those guys that he wants to try and do it all. And he didn't really, I think he was learning on the job as well at the time. He just kind of took us through the process of what it was like making Kiss records. I'm sure that all the experience that he had from being in the studio with Kiss, he brought that to the Keel sessions, and things that I didn't think a whole lot about then, now have become inbred parts of everything that we do. Simple thing like having the bass guitar complement the kick drum patterns. When the bass guitar and the kick drum have to be in perfect sync. And I never even realized that until Gene drilled it into us in rehearsals, how he would watch the kick drum and the bass player's fingers and make sure that they were absolutely in sync. That's just one small part of the song. That's what a producer does. A producer is like the director of a film. He's not the guy that turns the knobs or does all the high-tech stuff. Now, some of the producers, like Michael Wagner, he is hands-on. He will engineer his own projects as well. He knows all the tech. He knows all the gear. Gene was like the coach of the team, very much like a sports coach. He would coordinate all these elements, the guys, the songs, the producer, the engineer of the studio, but he wasn't the guy turning the knobs. He was the coach of the team. And even now, when I do any type of session, Gene's still the little demon on my shoulder telling me what to do. He had an amazing capacity to first of all, be very prepared. I'm not sure how prepared they were when they went into a lot of those Kiss records, but I think they had a pretty good roadmap before they went in the studio of what those records were going to sound like when they got finished with them. And he was great on being prepared and rehearsed, making sure those kick patterns and bass drum hits all were in sync and working together. But he also was fearless. When you're in the studio, he would not be afraid to throw it all out the window and take a chance and change stuff at the drop of a hat because he had what he thought was a good idea. Or if I had a good idea, he wasn't afraid to, he said, we'll try it. If it doesn't work, we'll all know it. You know, you'll hear it. If it doesn't work, we'll move on and go back to the way we had it. But let's try this idea while we're all here together. And that philosophy has really served me well in my recording career, and all those little lessons that Gene taught me, plus being a friend and being literally the sixth member of Keel for that 2-year span when we were in the studio making those first two albums. He was a friend. He would take us out to dinner. We'd cruise around Manhattan. We'd go to clubs, go to shows. He would introduce me to all his famous friends. We'd go to his apartment, watch movies, and eat popcorn. I mean, he was a good dude. He taught me a lot about business. That's probably why I have 27 merchandise items in my store at rodkeel.com. There's a lot of really cool items. You can get hats like this. We have these really cool cigarette cases. The Rod Keel Band cigarette case. These are rock coasters. It's a coaster made out of rock. We have all kinds of cool stuff on sale at rodkeel.com because there's no S in Keel, but there is in Simmons. And he taught me all that, man. He taught me a lot about business and marketing, and still to this day, I consider him a dear friend. I don't talk to him often or see him. I saw him a few years ago in Sioux Falls, and I was on the radio doing my gig. And I'm in the studio with the headphones on, the mic in front of me, doing my radio show. And I see Gene walk into the lobby, and I played a song, put the headphones down, went out, and I didn't say a word. I just started walking in his direction, and he just opened his arms and walked up to me and grabbed me and gave me this big, huge man hug. It was like, it's one of those man hugs. It was like, Gene. He didn't need to have said a word. It was like, he just hugged me, big and strong, and that just meant so much to me. I think the world of him, and I'm certainly glad I got to know him in that capacity. We'd sit around, play guitars, and talk, and just an amazing human being. Beyond the makeup and the money and the hype and all the bullshit, he is really an amazing human being with a deep love and appreciation for music and rock and roll music in particular, and rock and roll history. So very thankful for that relationship, and that's more than what it was like just to be produced by him. That's what it's like to be a part of his family, and I'll always treasure that experience and that relationship.
Super sick. That's super duper rad. Jason, my good gentleman, I think it's time to hear from you.
All right, Ron. So, growing up, were your parents or family supportive of you as a musician or singer, and or no? Was it kind of difficult for you to explore your talents?
It was a very strange relationship between me, my parents, and my music. They were supportive in the fact that they bought me my first drum set. They took me to my first music lessons. They encouraged me because I enjoyed it and it seemed like I was kind of good at it. So they encouraged me to a certain extent, and then they bought me a guitar, and then I got serious, and I decided, very early on, as I told you, I'm going to be a musician, and they thought it was just a phase. He'll grow out of it, right? So I'm, probably 11, 12 years old, and I was on that path already. I was already in bands. I was already had my first business card, and I was going to be in band. I was playing at the fair. I was playing at the amusement park, and I was dead set on being a musician. And that's when they go, oh shit, he's serious, and they started to push back against my desire to be a professional musician. And then they would ground me. I'd have rehearsal with my band. Oh, no, you're grounded. You can't go. Well, why am I grounded? I did all my chores. I got straight A's at school. You're grounded. You can't go. And they called my music teacher, Mr. George Schmidt, who was a dear friend of mine. He was like a second father to me. He passed away, about 4 or 5 months ago. Heartbreaking, but he had been with me for, 45 years. He had been my mentor and my music teacher for 45 years throughout my entire life, from 5th grade through all the Keel years and up until 4 months ago when he passed away. He was my music teacher. They called him. You got to come over to the house and talk to this kid. I was, 12, 13 at the time. They said, you got to talk to him because you got to talk him out of this. We don't want our kid being because they didn't believe I could make it. They thought that it was a road to heartbreak and that I was only going to waste my intellect and my assets trying to pursue some dream that was unattainable. So they called him over to the house. The story's in my book. And it's also, I have him, my music teacher, telling the story in my audiobook, which is available at patreon.com/Rod Keel. It's the only place you can get the audiobook. But I've got this cat telling this story, my music teacher telling the story that I'm telling you now in my audiobook. So I highly recommend the Rod Keel audiobook. I'll tell you more about that. Patreon.com/Rod Keel. Anyway, he's sitting with me in my bedroom. He's trying to talk me out of it. He's doing his best to fulfill my mom and dad's wishes. It's a hard road, man. Not a lot of people make it, and it's really tough to succeed. And there's a lot of drugs and alcohol, and you're setting yourself up for a long, hard stretch of heartbreak. And he's trying his best to talk me out of it. Well, dude, I want to be a rock star. Screw you. I want to be a rock star. And I'm just adamant about my path in life. He walks out in the living room and he looks at my mom and dad and says, he's a musician. Deal with it. And so at that point, they gave up on me. I went through my teenage years. The next few years, my first bands, my dad would not, I wasn't old enough to drive. My dad would not drive me to rehearsal. So I would carry my gear in Arizona. I was growing up in Phoenix on a cart, one of those dollies. I'd have my amp and my guitar and stuff on a dolly, and I'd walk down the sidewalk to wherever rehearsal was, whether it was miles away or not. I walk because my dad would not give me a ride because I'm going to rehearsal with my band. And I left home at 16. I promised them I'll stay in school, but I'm moving, and I'm gonna go follow my dream, and I'm gonna go on the road with a band. And they really gave up on me at that point, and I didn't realize how much it hurt them to realize that, man, the kid's lost. He's just lost. He's never going to make it. Until about 7 years later, and I had a band called Keel, and my dad thought, well, that's pretty cool. He named the band after me. My dad became my biggest fan. Now you got a band called Keel. You got a record deal. You got groupies, and you got beer. There. So Roy, my dad, he was my best friend. We really didn't see each other a whole lot for that 7-year period when I was on the streets in Nashville and Hollywood and all that. But when I started to be successful, and I'm not saying he liked me now because I was successful. He finally understood that shit, man. The kid was right. The kid didn't quit. He didn't give up. He followed his dream, and he made something happen. And he was really proud of me. And we became best friends for the rest of his life. And he would call me up and say, "Hey, Rod, Kiss is coming to town. Can you hook me up with a couple of tickets?" I called Gene. I called Gene. Hey, my dad wants to come hang out. And I would have to bail him out of jail. He had groupies. He had dope. He'd be drunk and smoking joints. And got 2 chicks in the car. He became like my kid. So that's the story of the support or lack thereof, and then the re-support of my parents. But they became, at the end, my biggest fans, and they were at so many shows. And they were very proud of me, and it was really nice to be able to show them that I could do it. It was really one of the greatest accomplishments of my life was proving to mom and dad that I did what was nearly impossible. I'm about to break into tears just talking about it because they were very special people to me, and they were my biggest fans. And I know that they're listening wherever they are now, and they're probably bitching at each other and listening to me.
That's because it's easy for them to support the Keel name as opposed to you in a band called Lust, I suppose.
Yeah, well, yeah. They like that name, Keel. That's a great name for a band, you know. And a lot, my dad would say, "Let's go take a picture under the marquee," you know. Of course. It was a lot of fun, man. I enjoyed having those dreams come true and being able to share those dreams with the people you love. My mom and dad then, and my wife Renee now, and being able to take my kids, you know, on tour throughout Europe and Japan, and you know, my kids have seen the world, and being able to share the stuff those accomplishments with the people that you love. Renee and I went to Australia just 4 months ago for the first time together. Just being able to provide those moments and those special memories for the people that you love, man, it's priceless.
Absolutely, for sure. So I'm going to jump in right quick. So, Ron, if you're cool with it, we're just a little bit over an hour now. I'm just going to take a second to thank a couple of people, and then we kind of set you up for a final series of questions. Are you down for a little bit longer?
No, my publicist gave me a 13-minute time limit, so I think we've exceeded that. So I'm out of here. No, I'm kidding. I'm hanging.
We're going to have to send Cycle. Don't worry, Cycle Steve will take the publicist out to dinner.
I'm sure he will.
He's got $5. He's got
$5. No, you do what you got to do, man. I'm enjoying this, and we'll wrap it up when we come back after this break.
No, absolutely. So we just always want to take a second to thank some of the sponsors that support us and look out for us. And, you know, we want to thank Levy Metal Enterprises, who do custom guitars, custom stage props for bands. We've got Twisted Vines Horror Decor out of Rhode Island. Want to thank Aces and Eights Skateboards. And also Bradley Entertainment as well for their continued love and support of us and allowing us to continue putting this on for the fans, the people that support us, and also getting to sit down and rock out with guys like you, Ron. So we really appreciate you, man.
Right on. Brad Lee. Love that dude.
Absolutely. No, it's one of my nearest and dearest. Me and Brad are very close.
Right on.
But one of the things that I wanted to talk about is one of our co-hosts as well, who's just taking a little bit of time off at the moment, is a big like gearhead, and so am I. So we're always loving to talk about like guitars and stuff like that. What are you playing for like guitars right now? Because you got a lot of V's that you use in your shows and stuff like that. But what are you playing right now for guitars?
I'm not a gearhead. I don't have a lot of attachment to a lot of guitars that I have, and this would be the time for me to be downstairs in the fan cave, surrounded by all the, I don't even know, and I'm not bragging. And my wife, she doesn't know. She sees a new one, you know, actually right there. Can you see that cardboard box? Yep. That's a new guitar. That is an Epiphone master built acoustic that Epiphone just sent me, and absolutely beautiful guitar. It sounds great, plays great. My instruments of choice, I love, when it comes to electric, I love the balance of, you know, having a Les Paul and a Strat. You know, old school, I don't use any pedals, except for the solo acoustic gig. I'll use a looping pedal so I can do solos over the top of the rhythms. So I do get a little bit more into the tech side of things for the solo acoustic gig because it's all me, by myself. I'll use a vocal harmonizer, the looping pedal. Sometimes I'll use a guitar synth, the Roland guitar synth unit, so I can do other sounds on top of the guitar sounds. I'll do the banjo or the fiddle or the piano. A lot of times I'll do piano stuff on the guitar with the guitar synth. But I do have a couple of very special guitars. I wish I would have known and brought them up that you were going to ask, because the 1976 Ibanez double neck is man, it's worth. Is it worth? Can you guys carry the show for me for 1 minute while I run and get it?
Hell yeah,
definitely.
All right.
Yes, we can.
It's all yours. I'll be right back.
No, absolutely. No, for sure. So, you know, we appreciate, you know, all you guys watching us and having a great time. You know, you guys have helped build up this show just as much as we've, you know, put in the effort to have great guests for you guys. And we definitely really appreciate you guys tuning in every week and supporting us. We do this show for you guys, and your support has meant so much of the world to us. So fans, thank you guys so much, as usual, tuning in for us and stuff like that. So we really appreciate you guys for that.
And please keep tuning in.
Yes, and I also like to chime in. If you notice, we do have another person on the panel. I wanted to bring it up to everybody's attention. As you see that Max and Bobby are no longer on the show for the time being, we do have a new member of the family. We have Jason
Leg. I'm sure.
Hello.
It got
What
awful
did I say?
quiet in here. Rod's not talking. Hell.
No worries, brother. But yeah,
just wanna
Jason,
welcome
so
Jason.
much appreciation for you, dude, joining us and
Yes.
joining the family.
Right
Yeah,
on, man. I
thank
appreciate
you.
that.
Thank you for
We
having
were
me.
asking about this. Isn't. I have used this on stage last year, a couple of years ago, but this is a 1976
Damn.
Ibanez,
Oh,
and the great story behind this guitar is that I bought this at a music store in Phoenix in 1976 for $189 with case, because I'd seen the Zeppelin movie, Song Remains the Same. And I got to have one of those. I got to have one of those double neck guitars, right? And it was my only guitar for a couple of years, because at that time when you're a kid, you can only afford one guitar. It's like having multiple cars. You trade your car in, you get a new car. You trade your guitar in, you get a new guitar. So I traded it in on a Les Paul and played that for a few years, but I always missed that double neck, man. It was a very special guitar. And I walked into a music store in Phoenix a few years later, and there it was, the same guitar. You could tell because it's got a couple little nicks on it. I put that nick in there with an ice pick in 1976, and you can tell. I mean, you know your guitars. There's I put these speed knobs on it. This guitar did not come with these knobs. I put those knobs on it in '76, and I walked into a music store, and there it was. And now it's $600. I'm broke. I'm living on the streets. You know, I got to have it. I want it back. I miss my old guitar. So I dig out whatever change is in my pocket. I think I had like $20 in change, a bunch of $1 bills and quarters and shit. And I throw it on the counter at the music store. I said, I want to put that on layaway. I got 30 days to come up with $600 to buy the guitar back. And I did, by construction work or doing bar gigs or whatever. I saved up $600 that next month, and I went back and I got the guitar. Of course, at some point, I don't even remember when I sold it again. But of course, I had to sell it to get another guitar because it wasn't practical for whatever gig I was doing. And I always missed it, always wanted it. And so, gosh, for years, I had an eBay search. You know how you can do an eBay search? If one of them comes up, you'll be notified. Ibanez 1976 white double neck. And they would come up on eBay, and they'd be like $3,000. I really want it, but that's a lot of money, and I probably shouldn't. And then this came up. It was a one-day auction on eBay. One day, $1,100. Buy it now, I think was the price. And the auction's ending at 7 o'clock. And literally at 6:59 and a half, I hit the button and bought it. $1,100. And I'm thinking, oh, it's cool. I got me another one of those cool 76 Ibanez double necks. And I get the guitar, and it's the original case. And it's my case. And I opened it up, and it's my guitar. It's the exact same, not just one like it, but the same guitar. And I just sat there. I just bawled my eyes out, being reunited with a long-lost friend. So needless to say, I'm not selling it again. It's going to stay with me until my dying day. But I do whip it out every now and then. We use a couple of double necks and a couple of songs on the show. If it's a local gig, I don't fly with it or travel with it. But you're asking about guitars. If there's one that has been a constant friend and companion, even through the years that we weren't together, I always thought about her. I always missed her. I always wished I could find her again. And she came back to me. So that's pretty cool. That's my guitar story for the day.
I have to say
that's so
is
rad.
an
I love the
awesome
fact
story.
that kind of that.
Oh, shit. She just fell down and the headstock snapped off. Damn it. Sorry.
I was about to be like, oh my God, really?
I'm not going to let that happen. I should probably. Here, I'll be right back. I'm going to lean her up against the couch, but
Yeah, for sure.
I can still talk.
No, absolutely. I love the fact that it's also got that Gibson SG like design to it as well. Because there's actually it's funny too because there's a little guitar shop across the street from my house that's selling an Ibanez that's the exact same guitar that Gibson sued Ibanez over because it's basically the body of it's a black guitar with yellow trim, but it's basically the body of Brian May's Red Special.
Yeah.
So I thought that was actually kind of interesting that guitar of yours is an Ibanez, but is a pretty obvious, Gibson SG, body to it when with the history that those guys have.
Yeah, I couldn't afford a Gibson at the time. $186, brand new in the case. So that was 1976 prices. But I did since buy a white Epiphone, the Epiphones are fantastic guitars. And I bought the white Epiphone, and my buddy Frank Hannon from Tesla wanted to have a guitar that he could play on stage with Tesla and then autograph and then auction off to help my wife and I with her cancer expense. The medical bills were almost $250,000 for her cancer treatment. So Frank, a lot of guys, Great White and Slaughter and the guys in Tesla all stepped up and really helped out at that time because I was out of work. I couldn't tour. It was a tough time a few years back, and certainly appreciate all the help we got from our rock star buddies. But Frank said, "Man, I want to do a guitar for Renee. I want to find something that I can play on stage with Tesla, so it'll be actually used on tour with Tesla by Frank Hannon. Then I'll sign it and we'll auction it off and we'll give you guys the money." I said, "Well, I had this Epiphone in the basement. I bought it because it was a really good deal." But I didn't tell my wife that I had it. It's kind of because it's in the basement. It's down in the man cave. I didn't tell Renee that I had bought the guitar. I said, "Well, this is perfect for you. You could use it on Love Song, and then sign it." Because Frank was in town, and we couldn't find the guitar here in town that he wanted to buy or play that he could take on tour with Tesla. And I said, "Well, just take this one. That it's already paid for." She didn't know I owned it. She didn't know I bought it. I don't keep a lot of secrets from my wife, but that guitar was one of the few. And of course, I had to come clean after that. Say, yeah, it's been sitting in the basement for 6 months. I just still had the stickers on it. I never played it. It was brand new. Still had the stickers and the little plastic wrap on the pick guard and all that stuff. So Frank took it, played it with Tesla, and he loved it so much that he's still playing it with Tesla. He auctioned off one of his own guitars and gave the money to Renee for her cancer fund, and he kept that white Epiphone. God bless it. Frank Hannon's an amazing guy, really one of my best friends on the planet, and we've been through a lot together. Gosh, Tesla's first show when they got signed was opening for Keel. So they have always had this special rapport with me because the night they got their record deal, they were opening up for my band, and not that had anything to do with it, but it was just a special memory for them. You never forget the night that the guy comes back and says, "We want to sign you to a record deal," and that was the night they were opening for me. So it was always a nice common denominator between the guys in Tesla and I, and we've done so many shows together, and Frank and I have played on each other's records. Frank played on my Metal Cowboy album, and I sang on his solo records, and just a great rapport, and an amazing human being, and a fantastic musician. So I wanted to share that. Since we're talking about white double neck guitars, that's not racist if we talk about white guitars, is it?
Not at all.
Okay,
no,
cool.
not at all.
No, absolutely. No, that's super duper killer, dude, because I can talk guitars all night long. But Psycho Steve, dude, it's time for you to get crazy, man. We need to hear that voice.
Okay, so first of all colored guitars matters. Okay. Question is perfect segue into saying, besides Frank Hannon and of course your bandmates, like who are your friends in the rock industry? Like when they come to where you live or you go to their playing, when you're touring, it'd be like you pick up the phone and say, "Hey, I'm in your town. Why don't we have a beer or come by after the show or before the show that shoot the shit?" Is there anyone?
Yeah, there are a lot of guys of that fraternity, so to speak, that we all usually end up seeing each other at these big festivals like the Monsters of Rock Cruise, when you've got 40 bands on board, and at least half of them are guys, survivors from back in the day, like myself, and Great White, Slaughter, Striper. I would probably put most of those guys near the top of the list. The guys in Striper and Great White and Mark Slaughter, Kip Winger, guys that are more than just we're comfortable together and we have a friendship and we can call each other and ask each other questions. When we did the Australian tour, Well, I went there in February, and the tour started, I believe, March 2nd, but I was there a few days early for rehearsals. It was a challenging situation because there were a lot of bands on the bill, Firehouse, XYZ, and they're all calling me because I'm there first. Because I had an Australian band behind me. I had to go early to Australia for the rehearsals, and those guys were just flying over at the last minute, getting ready for the gig, and I was there early. And stuff started to go sideways where bands didn't have all of their itineraries, or their travel arrangements weren't in order, or their visas, and they were concerned, hey, Ron, what's going on? So I became their source for information about the tour. And I just said, look, guys, man, I got my deposit. I don't know what hotel I'm staying at tomorrow, and I don't care. I'm in Australia, and I'm having a great time, and we're doing gigs, and I'm confident that at the end of the whole deal, I'm going to get my balance. And I got my deposit. They're treating me great. It's a little bit of a clusterfuck, but that's rock and roll, man. I mean, that's part of the cowboy in me. I don't mind facing those challenges or navigating uncharted territory. I don't have to have the whole thing mapped out for me, but a lot of these artists do, and I get it. That's their prerogative. It's in their contract. But they were all calling me, and Kip Winger especially was. We had a lot of very detailed conversations, and I told him, man, I can't promise you anything other than the fact that I am here and I'm enjoying myself. There's a few red flags, there's some concerns, but overall it's been a great experience. The fans are fantastic, and the shows are going great. Kip finally decided at the last minute he's going to get on a plane and he's going to come to Australia, and we did the gigs together. And I felt it felt good that Kip would trust my judgment enough to get on a plane and go across the planet. This is when the COVID-19, the virus, was just starting to make news. Little subtle headlines here and there. We were just hearing about it in February. And for Kip to get on a plane because of my recommendation, I think said a lot about our friendship and the fact that he trusted me with that decision. So there are friends like that I can call right now, and if I needed them for something, or if they needed me for something, whatever it may be, if they need a cheap opening act, they know they can call Ron Keel.
And that's ronkeel.com.
ronkeel.com, yes. You can find all of my social media, the YouTube channel, the videos, the tour dates, the patreon.com/Ron Keel. There's links to all that. You're one click away. I don't know what everybody else is going to do when Facebook goes the way that MySpace went, because it's going to happen. Everybody's in denial. It's like MySpace never happened, right? And Facebook is the shit. Well, and I'm a big fan of Facebook right now because they just licensed my song "Cold Day in Hell" for a major ad campaign. So, and that's a really nice payday. And so Facebook rocks, man. I love them.
Yeah,
but,
thank you,
man,
Mark Zuckerberg.
People are getting sick of it. They're getting sick of all the bullshit, and they're getting sick of every time they log on. It's just a mess. It's ugly. It's nasty. It's way worse than MySpace used to be. At least MySpace went away because the old folks started thinking it was cool, and the kids wanted something new or whatever. I'm not even sure. I mean, I've always been a social media guy. MySpace was a big part of our marketing back then. It was part of our record deal with Frontiers when we released Streets of Rock and Roll in 2010, which was 10 years ago?
Yep.
It was part of the deal. You had to have your MySpace page address on all of your collateral, your album cover, your promo photos, posters, everything had to have the MySpace. It was part of the deal. It had to happen. And so on every one of these old Keel, well, not old, 10 years old, they're autographed photos from the reunion tour in 2010. MySpace.com/KeelBand, and then all of a sudden, 6 months later, MySpace is not cool. It's going to happen with Facebook as well. It's already, I'm sure, I've seen a huge exodus from Facebook. I know we're broadcasting live on Facebook Live right now, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, the show's over. No, I'm kidding.
Nah.
But I don't know. You'll always find me at Ron Keel, because when that happens, people, what's Ron Keel up to? RonKeel.com has been there for 20 years. It'll be there another 20.
Yep.
Well, no matter what Twitters or TikToks or Facebooks or Insta this or whatever. It's all cool. I love it and I embrace it and I enjoy participating. But it's not going to last. There was a time in our business where you had to have AOL Messenger.
Yeah.
And you had to have a fax machine. If you don't fax, we're not going to get a gig if you don't have a fax machine. It all changes. This is technology. It's going to evolve. It's going to change. The shit we like now is going to go away, and it's going to be replaced by something new. So we have to be able to adapt. I mean, we never anticipated having cell phones. Even the science fiction movies. I grew up being a huge science fiction fan. I love all this. Star Trek had the communicator, which was close, like the little flip phone thing. But Jules Verne predicted the submarine and all this stuff back in the 1800s. They kind of had this vision of what life would be like in the 21st century, and none of them predicted the cell phone. None of them realized that we would have a mobile computer that would literally act as our constant companion, that you would be able to do so much more computing power than a spaceship had that went to the moon. And nobody predicted that. Nobody knew this was going to happen. Even in the 60s and 70s, when I was reading the most current science fiction stories by state-of-the-art authors like Isaac Asimov, Larry Niven, all of them, they knew that we would be addicted to some type of technology in the future. For instance, Larry Niven had a wire that plugged into the back of your head, and all of a sudden you're in virtual reality. And they called them wireheads in that series of novels that he wrote, which was hugely successful. And they would just get lost in the wire. If you're addicted to the wire, they called it. And they plug this wire into the back of their head, and they're in another reality. None of them predicted this, and they're all scientists. They're all geniuses. None of us predicted COVID-19. Y'all probably thought that there's going to be a pandemic, maybe a civil war, maybe an asteroid strike. I tell you, April 13th, 2029, there will be an asteroid strike, and we're done. So that's it. That's the last day of all of our lives. Hope we all live that long. I'll see you at the end. Or that's going to happen. Trust me. April 13th. It's Friday, by the way. Friday the 13th. April 13th, 2029 will be an asteroid impact. And so I highly suggest that you buy all of my albums now at rodkeel.com and enjoy them for the next 9 years.
Will you do a farewell show on that day so I know where I'll be?
Dude, I will be glad to do that. I'm not sure of the time that the asteroid is actually going to hit the ocean, but it's going to wipe us all out. But maybe I should do a gig the day before. Just
there
to be
you
safe.
go.
All right. Oh, you got
Dude,
it.
I was literally just thinking that sounds like an open invitation for us to be sitting with Ron on his porch drinking Keelahol as that shit comes down.
Absolutely. Let's do it. We'll have an asteroid watching party. I'll supply the Keelahol.
I'll bring the ugly chicks. Jay, you got to bring the good-looking chicks.
I'll bring all the good-looking chicks, I promise.
All right, then. It's on.
Hey, Angel, do you have any final questions from you, my man?
Oh, yes. Do you have any crazy stories from the road that you can share with us without getting anybody in trouble?
Yeah.
The guy was produced by Gene.
That would be the time for a very short, straightforward answer to that. Yes, I do. I have some wild stories from the road, but for me personally, it was always about the shows and about the music. Yeah, there was drugs and sex and all that. We partied hard and we had a good time. But my history, if you were happening to listen to my audiobook at patreon.com/rodkeel, you would know that my history is predominantly built around the journey, the music, the songs, the experiences, and there's no drug overdoses or car crashes or, we got wild. We had a good time, but it was always about the mission and the team and the journey. And, very thankful for that. A part of the reason I was not as successful as some of those bands like Crew or Wasp or whatever is because I was really the guy next door. I was the all-American, hardworking kid who, got a lucky break and was pretty much myself in my interviews. Yeah, we dressed up, we dressed wild, we acted wild. And, my persona was always pretty much the guy next door when it wasn't cool to be the guy next door. Now I could sit down in front of the webcam with guys like you and all the people listening and watching, and I could just be myself. Now it's okay. Back then it was not okay. They wanted the drug overdoses and they wanted the car crashes, and I didn't. So that it is what it is, man. I mean, the wildness happens when you're on tour with Bon Jovi at Madison Square Garden, 3 nights in a row, sold out, and at the Bon Jovi had been on the Slippery When Wet tour for 2 years at the time. They'd been out pushing that Slippery When Wet record, and we got the last leg of the tour. We were the opening act throughout Jersey and New York, and their stomping grounds where Bon Jovi was from. And the very last night of the tour, I believe it was Nassau Coliseum. In fact, I'm sure it was Nassau Coliseum. I sometimes misquote that as the Meadowlands, or another one rides the bus, but it was Nassau Coliseum. And after the show, it's the last night of their tour. They've been out for 2 years, busting their ass on that record. Last night of the Bon Jovi tour, and of course we were all hanging around. It was the end of tour party for me and my crew and my band as well. And John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora came into the dressing room, into our dressing room. Said, "You guys, just the guys in the band, come with us." And of course, John Bon Jovi says, "Come with me." Okay, you follow him. And they took us into their dressing room. And it was just the 5 guys in Bon Jovi and the 5 guys in Keel. No chicks, no crew, no wives, nobody, no managers, just the 10 guys in each band for the end of tour party, drinking, throwing beer all over each other, laughing and hugging and just celebrating the moment together. I know that might not be, if you're looking for dirt, you're probably not going to find a lot from me, but you're looking for some real magic moments like that when you get to celebrate the end of the Slippery When Wet tour in their private dressing room alone with the guys in Bon Jovi. Yeah, that's a pretty special memory and something that I love telling that story and just to be a part of that moment. It's rock and roll history. And I'm a huge Bon Jovi fan. I was a huge Bon Jovi fan before we got the tour. So to do that entire tour with them was obviously Madison Square Garden is on your bucket list. It's a benchmark. If you play the Garden, that's an achievement. If you play the Garden 3 nights in a row, sold out with Bon Jovi, that's pretty fucking cool. And of course, you walk in the first night, and it's very intimidating, and you're nervous and you're freaked out. It's the Garden, man. It's the fucking Garden.
Did you get a chance to do sound check there? Like, did you get a chance to
we did.
that?
Bon Jovi always they were so tired by then they didn't do sound checks. We pretty much got a sound check every gig because Bon Jovi was absolutely exhausted and all they wanted to do was sleep, and they would fly in on the jet and walk on stage. The roadies would check the gear, so we did get sound check. That first night was very scary. I mean, it was you're nervous. You're at the Garden, and you've waited all your life for this, and you've worked so hard and struggled for years to get there. And so it was a little nervous that first night. The second night, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is pretty cool." Yeah, night number 2 at the Garden. Yeah. By the third night, I'm the house band at the Garden. I'm skateboarding down the aisle, high-fiving the security guard. On my way to the catering, I'll have some food. Then we're going to do a gig. It was like you're the house band at Madison Square Garden by night number 3. Because the tour was so huge. We're doing 3 and 4 nights in each town. And just an amazing memory. That was certainly a high point for me doing the Bon Jovi tour. Aerosmith opening for them at Foxborough Stadium, Sullivan Stadium in Foxborough, Mass., where the Patriots used to play football. And doing the first hometown stadium show with Aerosmith when Brad Whitford and Joe Perry rejoined the band on the Done with Mirrors tour. I mean, it was like, that's their homecoming, their big, huge, triumphant reunion with Brad and Joe, and we were the opening act on that. The Cotton Bowl in July of 1986 with Van Halen, when Sammy was singing with them, and Sammy's my all-time favorite. He's my idol. And to be in front of 86,000 people at the Cotton Bowl opening for Van Halen, and that was also, there was some other great bands on the bill that day. I think like Dio and Crocus. BTO opened for us at that gig, which was, to me, it was a mind blower because I had mentioned an hour and a half ago when we started this interview that they were one of the bands that I grew up listening to and patterning my songs after. So to have Bachman Turner Overdrive taking care of business as our opening act, opening up for me, that's absolutely surreal, man. It's just one of those moments. And so, yeah, if you're looking for wild stories, that's what I consider wild. Those moments where you just pinch yourself and go, man, how did I get here? And am I really here?
No, for sure. That's super duper rad, Ron, for sure.
Well, it's been 2 hours, and I know you guys probably have plans. I know Steve's got a hot chick waiting in the other room, and I probably do too. So
for sure. And so real quick, I'll just close this down with you, Ron, as more of a closing comment, because you frankly answered it while you were telling your last story. Like, I've got your book. I've got Even Keel. I've read it. I think it's great, man. Like, music, I love to read, but music books they're what I read. I love a good old fashioned story of this, that, and the other thing, but just music books, that they're what I do. They're what I can relate to most. So, but I did love the fact that pretty much just like you said, I've read the Motley books, I've read Piercy's book, I've read the Kiss books and stuff, but I did love the fact that your book was not only open, straight up, just honest and in depth, like the fans are going to want the book to be, but it really is the story of like a guy he's just grinding. He's just, putting in the work, putting in the effort, and just grinding along, basically exactly the way you said it, where, yeah, the goodies and the fun stuff was there, but it was really just about, putting your head down and just going for it.
Yeah, I like the fact that I don't trash anybody in the book. I made it a conscious effort not to, because so many of those things are trashy tell-alls, and everybody's just bitching about everybody else. I figured that all of my ex-bandmates and ex-wives and ex-girlfriends and ex-friends and whoever, they were all off limits. The only guy I throw under the bus in the book is me. I copped all the bad stuff that I did, and sometimes reading the audiobook was painful because I hadn't read the book myself since I wrote it. So having to go back and read those stories into a microphone for the audiobook, which is available at patreon.com/Rod Keel. It was sometimes a painful experience, sometimes extremely inspiring. It's like a celebration of my life, and then sometimes really ashamed, not only that I did it, but I actually wrote about it and told the truth and was honest about it. So there will be some modifications done to the book soon. I am rewriting and throwing in some of the between the lines stories that I didn't include in the first edition, and also an addendum that's going to recap the last 6 years of my life, because it has been one hell of a ride since the book was published in 2014. So I thank you for enjoying that and for the kind words.
Absolutely, for sure. And we thank you, Ron, for taking this time to sit with us and kind of, give up a conversation, a part of your afternoon and our evenings to really have a good time. It was super in depth. It was a hell of a lot of fun, and we really appreciate you for it.
I enjoyed it too, guys. Thanks for the good time and the conversations and the new friendships. I'll see you soon, and keep up the good work.
Absolutely. We will definitely be having a future episode with more Ron Keel, without a doubt. Fans, thank you all so much for tuning in for another episode of the Metal Summit. We love you to death. You guys are great. Friday, we'll announce our upcoming guest for next week. For Angel, for Jason, for Psycho Steve, I'm Jay. And again, we thank the great Ron Keel, the Metal Cowboy himself. And we will see you guys next week on the Metal Summit.
You are listening to the Metal Summit, your source for all things rock and roll.